Yeah, hopefully he hears that. Anyway, all right, guys, ladies, fire away. Good to see y'all again.
You are going up against the 3-3-5 once again. You faced it before. Just what have you learned from past experiences against it that you're taking into this week?
Well, these are the originators, right? The team that we're playing here. I say that. I guess they're the first people to bring it into the league. You know, they do a good job. They know exactly what they're doing. They know their system. They're going to make you have to win the game. You know that they're not going to put themselves in bad situations. Okay, I think their players are very disciplined. They play within the scheme very, very well. You know, and through the years, as you continue to go against it, you know, they've consistently been one of the top defenses since we've been in the league, and that's still true today. So we'll have our hands full as we go down there. You know, our players are familiar with the scheme and everything like that, so I feel good about our ability to execute against it. But it's a good defense. We're going into a situation where a team's, you know, starting to grow and play their best football as every week as they're improving and they're getting older. So we'll have our hands full.
Do you have any memories that still stick out from 2021? Lance has talked about how, you know, driving up to Ames, seeing that program for what it looked like, and seeing that this is where you sort of have to get to. Do you have any memories still of that game?
Well, sure. I mean, we're going up there getting freaking our tails kicked. You know what I mean? Because that's what happened. And you know, and he coach said it. I mean, you use it as, and you say to yourself, well, this is where we got to go. And you look at their program and ours at that time and where the gap was, and say, well, we know what we got to do to close it, right? We know what it's supposed to look like, you know. And that we're using that as an example, but there's other teams, of course, that you could say that about, and it gives you a bar, if you will. So yeah, I remember going up there, and like I said, it's a challenge. We'll have our hands full. They do a good job.
Curious with Jason, how do you feel like he managed against Oklahoma, the 2 interceptions and then coming back for the final drive? What do you think he showed you?
Well, we had talked as an offense, and we talked about our keys to victory. And the last one was you have to be able to respond well to adversity as a football team. When you play good football teams, and it's a good college football game, there are going to be failures. You're going to mess things up. You're going to make mistakes. Right? No one's going to grade out those games perfect. And when you're playing a good game, it's back and forth the way it was, those mistakes get magnified. And so your discipline and your ability to respond to those mistakes is even harder to do, to at least respond the right way. And so when you talk about him specifically, to go through a couple failures in that game, but then still to be able to respond the way it was and put us in a situation to go out and win the game, speaks volume about to his development and how far he's come. Right, so I'm really proud of him and how he was able to, and the rest of the guys too, and how they were able to say every time we were getting the ball, okay, here we go, we got to go down, we got to respond, we got to do this, okay, we got to get it done, and that's the expectation, and they know it, and they know exactly what they have to do.
Lawrence obviously had the big catch on that drive, but this season overall, what do you feel like he's brought to you guys as an offense?
LJ, you know, he has brought, much like I've said to the room in general, the receiver room, he has brought a lot of growth and development, and he's really diversified himself as a player. So if you look at his route tree, if you will, his ability to run things well, he's done that, and he's put himself in position to be a very reliable and dependable player for us.
You guys have been struggling on 4th down until those last 2 with Luke and LJ. I was just wondering, what do you think was different about those, and what can you take from that to future 4th downs?
I don't, you know, we prepare for them, we plan them, right? I don't know if there's anything unique in those situations, right? If the moment was, you know, bigger or more important, you know, hopefully the way we think about it is every snap is important. You know, every 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th down that you have to go out there is important, it's critical. It's the one that's currently going on. So there's nothing probably specifically within those exact snaps that make you feel like, oh, that's the answer, that's why we didn't get them before, right? It really goes down to the timing of the call, what the look like that goes against it, and are we able to execute? And so we're trying to call things that we know they could execute in those situations.
Coach, to kind of follow up on that, what's the difference between 3rd and 4th and short and a 2-point conversion? And why do teams kind of have a lot of success in one and maybe not the other? Well,
you look at the vertical nature, the vertical position of the field. When you get down inside the 5-yard line, there's no longer a vertical threat to defend, and so things get diluted a little bit more right, from sideline to sideline, and the windows get a little bit tighter, and depends on what teams are trying to do defensively, if they're going to pressure you or they're going to, do this or that. So the windows get a lot smaller and tighter, so your precision has to be more accurate. Well, it's always got to be that way, but there's no threat of a top coming off for a defensive player anymore. So you have to make sure that you're doing a good job of distorting a team the best that you can, right, sideline to sideline as well, from the 3-yard line to the back of the end zone, and the target gets a little bit tighter, right? So when you're out in the open field, let's say you're on your own 50-yard line and it's 4th and 1, there's still a whole threat of, somebody running by you that you have to be able to defend still. So there's some schematic things that have to be a little bit different, typically at least.
Hey, going back to OU real quick, the being second interception late in the game, you obviously know where the clock was at that point. What do you do from the booth at that point? Are you on the phone with him, because you don't even know if you're going to get the ball back? What's the process that plays out from that point on to stay ready in case you do get it back?
That's a great question. And so it's always about the next snap, right? Kind of the response to what's going on. Okay, if we get the ball back, here are the scenarios. Okay, if we get a stop, which the defense did a great job getting a stop, we get the ball back, there's going to be approximately this much time left if we use our timeouts.
Sure.
Okay, that means that we're going to go on this, if this far to go, right? Again, there was going to be a punt that would be occurred, so it could have started anywhere from the -1 to the 20-yard line, right? Okay, so you're going through all of those variables in your mind, like, okay, here's what could happen next. So
this is you and not
this
yet
is
on the
me
phone,
and the offensive staff.
Okay.
Talking,
Yeah.
kind of going through, okay, cover this with the guys right on the sideline.
Got it.
Coach Z will directly communicate with Jason. If there's something I have to say, don't need to come over the telephone, but Jim does a great job of talking to him during the games and making sure he's right, and helping us move on to the next snap, because that's important, right? And he was able to, like we said, kind of respond to the adversity the right way, right? We didn't go well, right? It was a poorly timed play call with the defensive look that they had, that we didn't execute very well, right? And throw a bad pick, put us in a bad spot, and luckily we were able to get a good stop, and they punted it in the end zone. We started on our 20 and were able to go on the field. So it was about moving to the next play.
Sure. Kind of an offset of that, I guess. How many times do you get on the phone with, whether it's Jason or quarterback period? Is there an average number?
No, I couldn't even answer it. Maybe once a game, maybe twice, maybe 0.
Yeah.
Because it depends on what needs to be relayed. Again, Jim does a great job. Sure. You know what I mean, right? And we do what we do during a game because the trust that I have with all the other coaches that I work with to communicate what's happening, right? And up in the box, and we've been together for a while, and we rehearse it every day in practice. We're on headsets and how that goes, and tell them this and communicate this and communicate, here's the plays that we're going to come back to, or maybe in that series, here's the plays that we're going to call, here's the menu of calls, and maybe a 2-minute situation that we would have against that opponent. Those are the things that they're communicating. So don't feel it necessary. Sometimes I'll bring the tight ends over, maybe a little bit more to communicate to them, but again, between Coach Wallace, Coach Fuchs, and Coach Z, they'll be able to communicate to them what we need to get done.
Hey, Andy, last year, the offense was rolling early, and then Iowa State came down here and they held the offense to 220 yards. What is it that they do well? It seems like every year. How do they keep doing it?
Well, the same things that anyone does to play good defense. Play really hard, stay within the limitations of their players, have a sound scheme, right, and try to create turnovers. And that's what they've been able to do for a long time. So, we have to be able to combat that physically as we're going to move forward, with the things that we try to do on offense, for sure. But they do a good job, like we've talked about before here. They've been doing what they're doing for a while. They know exactly, the kind of personnel that they have and how to help them or protect them or utilize them, right, the right way. If they're depending on, for years past, they've always had a really elite pass rusher, that comes up, and you have to consider all the time when you're in passing situations, to account for them. So they do a good job. So it's those things that they do. There's nothing, unorthodox per se or totally foreign. It's the kind of things that you would want to have from your football team. That's how they play good defense.
From the coverage perspective, they're at the top of the conference in pretty much everything: completion percentage against, yard per pass, interceptions, right at the top for all that. Why are they so good on the coverage perspective?
Because their base coverage would be to drop 8 guys back, whereas most people's base coverage would be to have 7, right? And so they'll have a 3-man rush a lot of times, and there's kind of what we're talking about with the red zone. The windows get a little bit tighter when there's an extra guy running around there, and they know how to play that, right? That's what they do. So that's probably where it shows up. to be that way. You know, and again, right, and again, we can talk about statistics, and you've heard me say a million times, statistics lie, and liars use statistics, right? Like before people talk about how good or bad somebody is in one way or the other, you know, you have to, there's all kinds of factors, right? From who they play to the weather to who they played against with injury. You know what I mean? There's all these variables that go into things like that. So, but that's not, I'm not taking away from what they've been able to do, because they're good.
Andy, with the Wildcat, I know, first of all, the Wildcat, do you guys have a name for it?
No, it's a formation thing that we have with the personnel stuff that we do. We don't have a name for when we snap it to one of the running backs directly.
It looks like you've kind of put that in more. It's had some success. Just talk about that.
You know, it's a little bit of a derivative. You know, it's something that we thought versus Oklahoma that was probably going to be pretty good. So we had a few extra snaps of it. You know, moving forward, it probably not as much of a focal point, if you will.
We've heard a lot about the improvement that Jason has had so far. Just what are the main things that you continue to work on with him going forward?
You know, understanding the situational football, right? And putting in situations in practice to make sure that we're making quick, witty decisions, right? Which are things that you would be doing that for any quarterback and anywhere. His, as you've commented and we've said here before, his development and understanding of what we're doing offensively has been, it's at its highest it's ever been, right? As it should be, because he keeps getting a day older. You know, I mean, his speed is documented, obviously, right? About how fast he can do when he does those things, and you get him a chance to get the ball on the perimeter. It was a big deal, you know, for him to take it to the house that way. And so I think people really respect that about him and his ability to continue to extend a play with the other players around him as well, you know, scramble rules, that kind of stuff. But it would be the focusing on the game plan, referencing the calls. Again, he has to be the guy who orchestrates all those personnels and the movements and the shifts and the reads, right? And so referencing those things over and over again have been focal points. But those are the same focal points every week. It's not as though he's doing those poorly or needs to improve on them. It's just what we do. It's part of the process.
You've talked a lot about balance, offense, you know, run, pass. I wonder what the role of the offensive line is, and that they seem to be playing lights out, really either or. Are you seeing it the same way?
Well, yeah, they're playing good. And again, you've heard me talk in this room before about how, you know, we're so process and get better, you know, oriented as a program. But they are responding well to the challenges that we're putting at them week to week, right? And allowing them to play and do things that we're able to do, both schematically and procedurally, the things that we're doing, right? And then from a personnel standpoint. So they'll probably never get as much credit as they should, right? Okay, and that's why they play O-line, okay? But they're doing a great job, right? They really, really are. They're playing together very well as a unit. Things that we've talked about all along, the things that you should get when you have returning experience at that position. It's coming to fruition, and they're doing their part, and I think that they're embracing that deal. I think you've heard me say here before, you want a good picture of what a football team is really like? Look at their offensive line. Right? That will tell you about the culture of a program. I really believe that. Now, I'm not saying that as a knock of other teams. It's because no one's ever going to take their picture. No one's ever going to have them do some sort of thing on Fox and, you know what I mean, all the crap that you see, right, in between the commercials. It's never going to be alignment, right? So they're going to be humble, the best that they can at least, and they're going to go out there and they're going to work their asses off, and they're going to do it without any of the notoriety. That's a team, right? So they're doing that. That's awesome. I'm proud of that group. They got to keep doing it, right? That group and how they can stay together and how they can play down the stretch will really dictate the whole tempo of this whole team.
Do you personally have a feel for, hey, they're better as a pass blocking unit or a run blocking unit? And maybe if you don't.
Well, I know I wouldn't say one way or the other that, hey, they're way better at run blocking than pass blocking or slightly better or anything like that. We preach balance. And what we're doing offensively, schematically, and how we call it, and where we want to get our yards from and production from. So there needs to be practiced that way, right? Because I really believe that no team can really get to the level where they want to do without being both good at running the football and passing the football. Like, you can't be, you know, so deficient at one or the other, right? And there's a few exceptions out there, I know, but when you, at some point, somebody's going to match up and take away whatever one of those that you're really extreme in. So you got to be able to do both. That group has to be able to do both, the best that they can.
Anything else for Coach?
All right, fellas. Enjoy it. Ladies, have a good one.